how this works. We never know when Brian's going to decide. Okay, we're live and we're going. So we just start talking, and then whenever you start to hear,
oh my God.
I'm just kidding. We're not.
Whenever you hear that, it's like, it's like when you hear that happen, you know, okay, we're going. We either have been going live, and then that comes in, and
it's so loud.
That's not quiet.
No. I know.
All right. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry.
That's the jingle. Oh, man.
I also have this one for Steve.
Yeah.
Brian, are we sure that Russia is listening?
Russia's always.
Sure?
No censorship.
We're 100% sure
always
Russia is listening. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Vladimir. Yeah.
And I'll always do. Good to say, hey, good morning, Mark, Mr. Zuckerberg. It's nice to hear from you.
Zuckerberg.
Hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
Sit back, have a listen.
How's Meta going, you nerd?
Yeah.
It's going fantastic. Swimmingly.
Yeah. How much money you got left?
$2.
Yeah, no kidding, man. So, but we always have such a really... We always have such really a good time talking about pretty much everything and anything that the three of us and four when Brian jumps in. So there's a plethora of different
You know what Lexi said? She said to me the other day, when you and Mike start talking, it's a snooze fest.
She did say that,
yeah. I can say, but she's 18. She doesn't, she's only been dressing herself for a few years. So, that's, no, but the topics we have are I like them. And then when Stephen gets involved in them, for some reason, his added viewpoint always seems to, enhance it. And we go in all kinds of different directions and whatnot. And
yeah, we were talking about this. We have great conversations too because you're very binary, just kind of in how you think and your experience. Not all the time, but in your vocation and generally. Mm-hmm. And then what's fun is we can be philosophical and trail off, and I question and why is this or for X, Y, and Z, So
well, not only that too, but just the backgrounds, the history of the three of us is very different. And so we bring in different perspectives of the same thing. And one's not wrong and right, although sometimes, I think I'm the only one that's right. And you guys surely need to bone up on your,
You got a thing in your pocket called a phone.
Yeah. No, but
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Mark's always right.
Yeah, another Zuckerberg thing. But, so, I whatever it is that we decide that we are going to talk about, and who knows what we're going to launch onto. But first of all, where are you at in your, so everybody knows you're working on your PhD in I guess it's cognitive sciences, the PhD. Is that the actual?
So that's the name of the program that I'm in, like the department at the university, but my actual research is in cognitive neuroscience. So it's like a more specific subset of that.
Okay. And what exactly, for the layman, for us that, don't have that background, what actually, is that? What are you involved in?
For cognitive neuroscience or for cognitive science as a whole?
Let's look at it as a whole. In general, I think it'd be easier for us to understand. So
cognitive science I love to talk about just because it's like one of these fields that no one really knows what it means because it's not necessarily the most widely used term or even department. But it's basically an amalgamation of all of the fields that would attempt or have some subset that attempts to understand the mind. Mm-hmm. So the mind can be broadly defined to be a human mind, or it could be artificial intelligence. It can be animal cognition, animal minds. And so the fields that are relevant to the study of the mind are mainly acknowledged to be 6 main ones, which are philosophy, linguistics, computer science, psychology, neuroscience, and anthropology. And so cognitive science bridges elements from all of these fields such that you can advance the study of the mind.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You brought up animals, which I didn't really even think about, but is it the expert who studies the animals that also studies that animal's neurochemistry and biology, or do you have a specific neuroscientist who specializes in animals?
Absolutely, yeah. So it depends. Like sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's people only studying the biology and not really understanding much about cognition, or they use behavior of the animal as like a measure of the brain activity they're interested in, but it's not exactly studying like the mind of the animal, if you will.
Yeah.
But there are people in cognitive science specifically more so that they study animal cognition, like what are dogs doing that's different than what humans are doing, and then oftentimes that requires some kind of like neuroscience to just sort of like support your direction of your research.
Is there always a purpose tying the animal to human, or are you just
That's what I was wondering.
studying the animal for the sake of the animal?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on the researcher because it's not going to necessarily be the same answer for everyone. Like I think some people are just super into like zebra finches, which is a kind of bird, just like for the study of a zebra finch. But if you ask everyone else or like what they would write to the government to like appeal for money, it would be like, oh, because I'm using the zebra finch as a model to understand this so that I can apply it to humans in the future. But it's like that like future piece sometimes just like never happens.
You're like, I just freaking love the zebrafish.
Like, seriously, yeah. Or like a worm, like I'm obsessed with this worm, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be. So, artificial intelligence, you mentioned that. What's your view on that? Because right now, today, that's becoming such a hot topic. With
we were debating this. We went back and forth.
Yeah, we talked about this all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, this is definitely not something that I'm an expert in by any means, but I think of what I know, I think it's an amazing piece of technology. Absolutely. Even the new Chat GPT, I'm sure you guys have been hearing loads about this. It's incredible, and I think it'll change a lot about education, about work, like especially I think artists, writers, educators are going to be having a tougher job because of that kind of technology.
Explain it so that our listeners have, if they don't understand it, they have give them some kind of a easy overall.
Sure. For something like Chat GPT, what it's basically doing is it's taking an enormous corpus of basically like human generated text, for the most part human generated, right? So it's going to be trained. I don't know exactly what's all in the training set of like that particular product, but it's like people have said it's trained on like the whole internet in the sense that it'll take like tweets, it'll take essays, blogs, like whatever has been like shoved into that. And what artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques are doing is it's a bunch of just like math. So they're making kind of models of like what is, if you say like my apple is blank, like what's the most likely thing to be like next in that sentence. Obviously it's a much more like sophisticated model than what I just described, but it kind of captures the essence of that. It's just math. It's like a lot of linear algebra that is using to say like here's things that co-occur in the same sentence, and then like kind of how to refine that to where it sounds human, right? And that progress of refining it to sound more and more human is what I think we're really getting to an incredible point at now, to where it's now passing the Turing test, where people are like, oh my God, this thing is having an existential crisis.
That's what's fascinating is the, academia, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they'll just tell you that the computer's really good at guessing the next word that went before it. Hi, I'm Steven, whereas like the I guess maybe the layman or the people that embrace the woo-woo, more believe that it is sentient and that it has its own thoughts and feelings and that it is farther more developed than we give it credit to. And this is what we were going back and forth on was, I asked Dylan because I don't know if you're familiar, but a couple months ago, the news story came out about Lambda and the Google artificial intelligence chatbot that this Google engineer, Blake Lemoine, claimed that was sentient, and that if you read the transcripts, shows a dialogue, a back and forth for him to prove. And I talked to Dylan about this, and she essentially said what I said. The first thought of that is, it's just a really smart computer. It's not real. It's not sentient. And my, I guess, rebuttal to that was, what is the marker for sentience? Does it have to walk up and shake your hand or smack you in the face for it to be real? Where is the line? And I don't think we really have that line yet, right?
Yeah, no. So this was such maybe one thing I want to lay out on the table, which is I think that there's a difference between something that's intelligent and very technically impressive and sentient, right? So things can be intelligent in a non-human way and it's still incredible, but that doesn't necessarily mean it lend sentience, right? And so, but
this is where I go, boo, boring.
But the question you presented me was so good, and we just had such a great conversation, because I think what Stephen didn't even realize was that the question he asked me was actually one that's very core to cognitive science, and that philosophers for centuries have been hashing out. And there's not a one verdict. There's not a one answer to that question. It's pretty much taken as a truth that you can never, even for you guys sitting in this room with me, there's never a bar that I can say yes, this thing is sentient. It's I think, therefore I am. I only know that I'm sentient, but I can't ever say that about anything else in my environment, right? So it's pretty cool. It was a really good question.
It is subjective,
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, even our perception shapes our reality, some theories of physics is that we only interact, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm not a physicist by any means, but we only interact with our environment when we're in it, and just like everybody else does. So the whole term of a tree falls in a forest and if there's no one around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Well, according to physics, in some circles and theories, there is no tree. No tree is falling. It's not falling until you're actually there in the presence of that matter. And again, stop me if I'm just going off.
No, I mean, but wanting to hear what you're saying.
It's an interesting thought experiment to think that I go from my house in Newport Beach, 20 miles away, is not there right now until we get in our car and drive 20 minutes down the street to it. It's, I don't know. It's a fascinating. So all of this feeds into that question. We question our reality, our consciousness, what we believe to be true or not.
So what you're saying is that unless you can see it, touch it, smell it, it doesn't exist.
Well, it's. I think that the theory is that all matter is comprised of atoms that stack next to each other to build something hard.
Right.
And that I guess I'm so far away from this, being actually accurate. But my from what I'm recalling and what I thought was interesting is that these forms of matter can collapse, and then they reappear as we engage with that. So how do we know that our reality is...
You're talking about the collapse of a superposition?
Yeah. It gets into the quantum field, which again, I'm not doing it justice, but essentially it's consciousness. Our perception shapes our reality, and whether we're engaging with a shared consciousness or it's unique to.
Well, what about reality shaping
perception?
What about reality shaping your consciousness? What about your reversal, your perception? What about reversing it?
I mean, we take in information as our environment feeds it to us, but I don't know if you can. Yeah, I don't know. It's beyond me, the thought, but it's a fun thought experiment to kind of understand. I guess we trailed away from artificial intelligence, but
That's what we do.
I think it's actually a perfect segue back into artificial intelligence, though, because what I would say
Save me,
to
please.
like a lot of what you just said was that you can have you can have computation without having perception,
Right.
and that's what I think. That's what is happening in artificial intelligence. Like,
Right.
and so even in terms of like animal intelligence, when you look at like a lizard responding to seeing an eagle in the sky or something like that, like you can't say for sure that this lizard is perceiving the eagle, but you can say that there's some computation happening, as in there's some stimulus and some response, like some output to that, right?
Yeah, I think, absolute stimulus without the cognitive awareness. Would that be fair in saying it that way?
Yeah, or I think like using the word sentience, like
Yeah.
vaguely defined, but
I think,
commonly
therefore I am.
understood. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So that's kind of like the whole conversation that revolves around the soul.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
do we actually have a soul? Because you
yeah.
cannot see the soul,
Yeah.
but you can feel the soul.
That's what I was trying to. I guess I trailed off on my own, but that's the point we get to, is where's the definitive line that tells you are you and what you're experiencing is real. What is real? It's subjective to a point, like.
To a point, but then I guess as a human being, that is our reality, is what is real to us is real. Mm-hmm. And as a human, there has to be some we can go off and say, okay, your home doesn't exist when you leave it.
Yeah.
But in our reality, oh fuck yeah, it does. It's over there. Yeah, I can have your
Still
neighbor
gotta
go
pay for the electricity that's running while you're gone.
Yeah, I can have your neighbor run out and take a picture of it for you. But then that could be argued. Well, the picture is now the reality, but the picture was taken 5 minutes ago. The home's not there anymore. But I still have to. I mean,
I think that goes down to the observer effect. It's however you're engaging or interacting with that object is the observer. So just like quantum mechanics, electron spins in superposition when we're not focusing on it, but when we do, it changes. It spins counterclockwise, I believe.
But quantum mechanics doesn't like apply to your house. It's kind of like not a.
Now I'm trying to bridge the what we are seeing. We like to try and put a label on it to make sense, when in reality, I think science in general is stranger than we think, I guess is my point. So
Totally.
There's a lot of mystery in that. And again, going back to sentience, okay, the computer's not alive, but what is alive? Where's the line? Well,
Yeah.
doesn't that get you into then, when you think of alive, there are so many different variables to being alive. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can have,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Let's just say that there's an insect that doesn't feel pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or viruses.
or
Viruses
viruses.
are a great example of this. Yeah.
Right, but it's living. It's a living organism. So, but there's no feel involved with it. So, okay,
Not that we know of. Yeah.
that we know
Yeah.
again, yeah. And so you can't really define life in our terms, where I feel, I have emotion, I have touch, I have smell, I have all of these things that we consider, okay, you're alive, you're breathing, your
Yeah.
heart's pumping.
There are people that do work on the physics of life, which is to say, like, that you can define life not so much in terms of like biological processes, which is like the more commonly understood way to do it, but there's people that are trying to understand, like, in terms of like the universal like elements of the universe, like what life is, and making definitions based around that, in which case you might be able to have a more like concrete dividing line, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. I think where the danger for me in thinking about artificial intelligence, for example, is where we're trying to define, okay, when is that alive? When is it no longer a machine, and it has the qualities of a living, breathing thing. I don't know that we'll ever get that ability to answer that question to that level, but I believe that what we need to do is look at it as not so much is it alive, but is it human?
Why?
Because us as humans are what's going to be relating to that. We're the ones that are going to be tied in with it. The dog is not going to be basically tied in because they have no concept of it. So we have a concept of it. So we have to look at it. I say we have to. We don't have to do shit. But to me, we would want to define it as human, non-human. At least that's some type of a border. That's a starting point or a finishing point. That's some kind of a point that is a difference between the computer and artificial and us living, breathing. Because absolutely, the computer can be built, especially when computers get smart enough that they're starting to give us information on how to build a better one. So it's going to get better and better and better. We're not. We're going to slowly get better. We're going to slowly morph into something which is history has shown is what we do, but we're not going to grow in quantum leaps like the computer's going to. So there's going to come a point when I don't know if it's going to be competitive where, oh man, the computer is much better than I am, but it's still not human because otherwise
Edit me out of falling out of that chair. Huh?
You didn't even
that's
fall.
actually worth keeping.
You managed to not
That's
fall.
fine, but I get royalties.
All right, we're back, and I'm in
Royalty.
We're back.
Restroom really quick.
All right.
You guys have fun.
Sorry about that, everybody. We had reality hit us with a
Yeah, if you guys know
broken
me,
piece of
I'm
furniture.
clumsy, and I just had another what we call a steezy move.
Yeah.
Broke
Runs
the chair.
in the family.
Broke the chair. The chair's broken.
But anyway, so where are we at?
So
You were
just
talking about human versus non-human, that should
Oh,
be...
so what I was going to say
Go ahead.
quickly to that is what if, we are the humans making this decision on separating artificial intelligence versus humans, but the AI goes, don't shut me off. What I have a say here too. How do you change your approach when you actually have to include the computer?
Why do we have to include it?
If it's telling you that it's smart enough, you in theory would at least consider that before shutting it off, just like you wouldn't kill a child randomly or something,
Yes,
or put a freaking animal down that's looking at you that's like smarter than it should be.
Yeah, but then we're getting into something that we know is absolutely a living creature, but
this goes back to my question.
Yeah,
We don't even do this for
alive.
cows. Why would we
Yeah,
do it for...
exactly. I was just
I
going
hope
to
that
say.
we would do this for animals way before we
before.
ever thought about doing it for computers.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Okay, no, dude, I'm going to shut your fucking ass off because you're just a computer, but I'm smarter than you.
you taste good.
You know what? That's not
anthropomorphize
something to be
everything.
proud of.
Yeah.
So.
But that's what was fascinating is this gentleman, Blake Lemoyne, asked these questions. How would you react if I shut you off? Or how would you react if I ran experiments? And the computer replied, well, as long as you're giving me consent to agree to these experiments, that'd be fine.
Yeah. I think that, but honestly, stop you right there.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly where we draw the line. It's kind of like Dillan said, it's just a fucking computer. The minute that we stop thinking about it as anything more than what it really is, I believe that that's the danger zone.
Yeah, I think that concerns over this, at least for like the foreseeable trajectory of artificial intelligence, are overblown in the sense that like already computer intelligence looks fundamentally different from human intelligence. Like the digital form of thinking that computers have is incredible and it's an amazing tool, but it's distinctly inhuman. Like there's a whole field of like philosophy that studies like how computers and humans are different in the sense that like humans operate on logic systems that are not ones and zeros. And like,
correct.
this is really cool. And like, the interesting question is like, why, right? Like, why are humans not perfectly rational in a sense? But like, the reasons that we build artificial intelligence as tools, I think would limit them from ever being so human that they freak us out like that. Do you know what I mean?
But don't you think that binary eventually, and I could be wrong, but couldn't binary get so, especially when we get into qubits and we get into quantum computing, that it would eventually mimic the synapses in your brain? Or is it two
I'm
different
talking
things?
about I'm talking about this. So I'm talking about the system of logic. So it's kind of like, it's like if-then statements, right? So like if A,
I'm
then
writing
B,
those right
right?
now.
That kind of thing. Like humans operate on this logic to some extent, but there's tons of ways that we violate it also. Like we have intuitions and biases that are like cognitive, psychological biases that have a play in like all of our day-to-day lives. And so what I'm saying is that computers, unless you tell them to have those kinds of biases, won't and don't. And the reasons why we build computers to do the cool things that they do is as tools for XYZ. And so unless someone is explicitly trying to build a computer that is as human as humanly possible, like it's not going to come to the point where it looks like a human enough to fool us.
And I don't understand why that would be necessary to do, to develop a computer to be as human as possible. I have two thoughts here. One is that, why would we want to even, engage
For fun,
in that?
really, I think.
Probably. But the other part of it too is I really wonder, listening to what you're saying, how real our fear is about this, because where is our information coming from? Is our fear coming from what we're hearing with scientists that are working directly with this, or is it filtering down to people like us? Or worse, somebody like me that doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but I can spin it to where it's this is scary shit. They're going to take over. I mean, it all goes back to Hal and.
Yeah, I think ultimately the actual scary thing is like how we use these tools, which is a human thing at the end of the day, right? It's just like at the end of the day, it's like the bottom layer is humans being like evil or malintentioned or just not careful about the way they use it.
Which I really
right?
think that's where our fear comes from, is because we recognize that we as humans are flawed. And there are some pretty evil, humans that have lived in the past that are living today, and they're going to be living in the future. I don't think that everybody does have the best interests of mankind. I think that, a lot of people just have the interests of their own little
Yeah, or I mean, even like racial bias in these algorithms, for example, is like a well-known, well-talked about phenomenon that is like completely unintentional, right? It was not like anyone set out to make like a racist AI, but just because of the way
your own biases.
It was developed, or the biases of the training data, which are human biases at the end of the day, right? The data that you feed in is like data from humans. And that means that the output is going to have like the biases that humans do. And so that is not anyone being like malicious or evil. That's just being like is an accident, right? Or it's like not careful.
But how do the we'll call it the rules of engagement change once this AI? Because the way I see this too is AI has a problem because it's stuck behind a screen. It's not in a 3D environment yet. And we talk about the distinction between the big thing in Ex Machina, they'll like line, and it is an AI can calculate what the sun is doing. Its rays are shining on you, the temperature, the radiation that's coming off of it, all of it. But the AI can never experience what it feels like to have sunlight hit their face.
Right.
And that's a different thing. That's beyond the binary ones and zeros that you can put in this computer. How do you think the rules of engagement change once these things, like use a Tesla bot? You put this AI in an actual 3D environment, and it's going to adapt and learn in the environment just like we did. as well. And
Yeah, I think it's just it's other streams of data. It's more streams of data. It's higher dimensionality, if that makes sense to say. But like, it's not. It doesn't necessarily like this question. Like, there's this famous philosophy essay called "What Is It Like to Be a Bat?" And it's well known in cognitive science because it's talking about this question, like, you could be a bat researcher and you could learn everything there is to know about the bat brain, the bat body, how it is that bats echolocate, whatever, but all of that knowledge would never tell you what it feels like to be a bat or what it feels like to echolocate. Correct. And so I feel like that kind of relates to do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. But I think, like, again, like the human brain is so adaptable. We have adapted and changed over, hundreds of thousands of years. Pilots, because they primarily spend most of their day in a 3D environment, we live on a two-dimensional plane for the most part. We drive on flat land, we go to sleep on a flat bed. But the brain of a pilot is in 3 dimension because it's day-to-day is up, down, left, and right. We're just left, right, straight, back, So that is an example to me of a different, that the brain is adapted to its environment a little bit more. I just think that artificial intelligence is going to be really good at adapting, which is the basis of what being a person is and having a brain and, all this stuff too. So down the line, I just personally believe that this AI is going to get just as not only prevalent, but as smart and if not smarter than we are, and it's going to be ubiquitous everywhere.
Well, I don't think getting smarter than us is a question. I think absolutely for sure it's going to.
Yeah.
Be, because it's an accumulative amount of knowledge. The knowledge isn't coming from just one person. So what I don't know, what you don't know, and so you get enough of these people and they're feeding it all into one program. Yeah, absolutely. The thing just became way smarter than all of us all combined. So, that, it, whatever is for sure. Where'd that? Oh, outside noise.
Someone's got to work on
Lexi
Christmas.
leaving for work.
Yeah. So I think that, the fear of AI being smarter than us, if there is a fear of that, we'll get used to it because there's no doubt that it's not going to be smarter. Now, what it does with this intelligence, I think, is solely going to be up to humans that interact with it and control it. The danger point I think that people are the most worried about is what happens if I can't control it. If we get to that point,
who knows?
Then we truly weren't as smart as we thought we were because we didn't put safety factors into it to help protect us against that point. So if we're already afraid that that's going to happen, hopefully people way smarter than me are going to put some type of system together which will keep it from being a danger to us.
Yeah. I feel like that's really unlikely. First of all, I think the bigger concern for me anyway would be something closer to like that Russia build some robots that can just like kill everyone. Like I think that's way more terrifying and way more real of a possibility.
Well, I don't know that that's any different than Putin himself. So
yeah.
I mean, he's one button away from killing everybody. That's
machines are so stupid. Like you throw in a semicolon in the wrong place, it breaks everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're stupid. Like it's just I just don't think it's scarier.
Put it in the right perspective. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. Well, that goes back to my
syntax error.
Yeah, exactly.
That goes back to my feeling that the fear that is developed over AI and what it could possibly do, I think has been handed down by people like me that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, can create a lot of fear from the lack of knowledge, and then people run with it and they're going to put it up on social media, and then somebody reads it on social media and they relay it to somebody else. And next thing you know, we got a fear of something we don't even know anything about.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, people like Elon Musk, like perpetuate this, right? And,
Sure.
And you're looking at him as like someone who should know, So
Yeah.
like, I think it's kind of fair that would be happening.
Oh yeah, yeah. When he's talking about planting chips in people's heads, and you're not even going to have to speak words. You can sit here and have a conversation and not open your mouth. It's kind of strange.
What's fascinating about Chat GPT and like the AI and stuff, I think is cool is one, this is like brand new to me. I mean, I feel like this has just come into kind of the mainstream conversation only in the last
absolutely.
6 months.
Yeah.
But it's also just brand new in general.
In general, yeah. But you could write me an essay about the war in 1812 as narrated by the Backstreet Boys, and
It does. Yeah.
It's
it pops it right up.
Have you played with it at all?
A little bit. I actually downloaded the app when we were chatting about it
so
last
cool.
week.
Yeah.
I asked the AI if AI would be used in a court of law, and it has said it kind of. Yeah, not in actual handing down cases or anything, but it can interpret law and stuff.
Totally.
Pretty interesting.
I've already seen. I'm on this like subreddit that's like for professors, just because it's fun to snoop on this stuff. There's already been like 20 posts of people with like their students having turned in like ChatGPT generated essays, and they were like, besides like the references being like non-existent, I never would have known that this wasn't written by like a person. Like I would have given this an A.
Yeah.
And it's just like so weird.
But
like,
I was telling them, because that's the thing is, students are going to cheat, but I was watching a video that was interesting. They said on the flip side, it's going to be really good for teachers too, because,
Totally.
we were talking about this too. If Mike's having trouble with the War of 1812 and I need to create a personalized lesson plan for him that highlights names, dates, and important events, it's going to spit that out right away for me. So it does go back and forth.
Well, I definitely, I mean, it's so easy to talk about the negative side of it and the fear factor of what it could do, and it could push the button and nuke all of us while we're asleep and when no one knows that it happened. So we can really be concerned.
Sounds peaceful.
Yeah,
That's the best way.
yeah. But it's also too the other side of it of the resources that are developed through this and who it can actually help. And, just like you said, with teaching, you imagine if you can put a program together for a child who is severely ADHD or dyslexia or, any other learning disability, but you put a program together that they can comprehend, that would be amazing.
I think that overall that would really help. I mean, it does increase the ability to cheat, but I think you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater in that regard.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what are some of the positive aspects of it. What are we looking at? Because we can go on. We can go on.
Here.
Yeah, we can go on. We can go on and on about the downside of it, but there's also got to be some just amazing upsides to this intelligence.
Yeah. Are you asking me or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm looking at you. You're on the spotlight.
I think there's honestly the wealth of like opportunity and cost is hard, very hard to predict at this point in time. But a lot of people, or something I like to refer to is the movie Her. Have you guys seen that?
I know about it. I didn't see it.
Have you seen it?
No.
It came out, I don't know.
Feels a little
maybe
rom-com-y to me.
No, it's not. It's more sci-fi than
romance.
anything.
Is it really?
Yeah, but it's in any case, the premise of the movie is about this guy who falls in love with his Alexa, kind of his artificial intelligence assistant. But the setup of the society that he's in is the society where basically humans don't do stuff that they don't want to do anymore, basically people who are working in food service or as janitors or whatever, none of that exists anymore. And now the economy is run on just creative industries. So people who make video games or people who make art or story writers, whatever, this kind of thing. And I think that's if you could think of any utopia that artificial intelligence or just automation in general could help us achieve, to me, that's kind of what it looks like, where it's not replacing the things that are most core and most communal about human experience, but the things that are sort of just like mundane or even like
Time-consuming.
harmful, or like lead to like inequality, right? So I think like if you're like thinking in really grandiose terms, that's kind of what I like to picture as being like the ideal version.
And the way that's interesting about that is like you have, farmers for, the last couple thousand years tilling their fields with either a horse or by themselves. And now you jump in a John Deere and you push a button, and it's like, but because of that advancement, we now have expectations set around when our food is ready, and like, that's what drives all of this. And I actually was arguing when I first started hearing about the idea of universal basic income. I thought that was an interesting theory on the positive side for having everybody have the ability to get some form of basic compensation, because we eventually are not going to have these mundane jobs and we will have more time to be creative and do the things we don't need to do, and instead spend time doing more things we want to do. And I think someone who is against UBI or doesn't agree with the concept can't wrap their head around us having free time. They're like, they just can't conceptualize the fact that things can get done in a proficient manner without people actually doing it.
Yeah.
And I think slowly, as we're moving, we're slowly becoming more hands off, and we're letting AI and computers and technology till our fields for us, do all these things.
But that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Because you have people, let's say, that no longer need to go to work because it's being done automatically, for us, for whoever. Okay, they need to have some type of income to survive. So we're going to give them that money that they need to survive. But they don't have either the mental capability or the drive or the determination to better themselves and move themselves up to the next level to be engaged in some type of work that is going to be productive, not only for society but also for them. So then what do we do there?
This is the antithetical argument.
Do they just exist? Now I'm all for less work, more free time for people to maybe experiment or put effort into something, something that they are, interested in. Maybe it's poetry, maybe it's painting, maybe it's landscaping, maybe it's something where they're going to be creative and spend their time more. Because I think, personally, I think that is one area that we are lacking in our society is creativity by people. I think we have become
and community.
In community, we have become numb to it. So if there are programs then that we can say, okay, we're going to give you X number of dollars so you can survive, I'm on board with that. I don't think anybody, it breaks my heart when I see, communities where people are just barely getting by. I think everybody needs to be able to live, especially we talk about what a great country that we have. Our country is way behind other countries as far as taking care of the needy.
Yeah.
And so if there are programs put in place where these people can then go and do other things, whether it's to enhance their community, whether it's to, volunteer in schools, volunteer in government, whatever that is, then I'm all for it. Yeah. But if it's just to pay people to stay home because now we have this machine that can do your work, you're no longer needed, but we don't want you to starve. So, here's $50 a day.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's right. I think I think we forget that we have to feed people to be creative.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's a really valid concern.
Well, I was just going to, just on that thought too, I think the more that we get more people away from Maslow's hierarchy of needs in a 24-hour period, you're going to spend more time being creative. If you're not fighting 18 out of your...
Explain that.
You're obviously, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is your shelter, your food, your security, things like that. The more that you spend your day chasing that dollar that's going to get to that limit to where your needs are met, the less time, or the longer that takes out of your day, the less time you are freed up to do these other endeavors that maybe that are beyond that
now
cause you to.
What does that world look like?
I give an example of the Greeks. So it's always this entire thing is based on resources and demand, right? And this is why we as humans fight each other over it, and we steal other resources, and we accumulate as much as we can, because we're always fighting against our Maslow's hierarchy of needs, even as a nation. As a nation, you want to grab as much as you can and stockpile it because we know we're good for the future. We're still human beings at the end of the day. And it's been worse in the past. It's only getting better as we move forward. It's easier to accumulate these resources, build brick and mortar shelters, things like this. I use the Greeks as an example because the Greeks at one point had conquered so much of the world, they had time to sit around and think. You create Socrates and Aristotle and all these other people because they were not fighting for those needs as much every day.
Some of them weren't. Yeah.
Some of them weren't, but you have time to sit around and start
Socrates
thinking
was
about
like,
these
I'm
things.
full. Let's take a break.
That's exactly my point, right?
But doesn't this create an environment of the have and have-nots? It doesn't this, if we're just taking care of people's needs and people become reliant on their needs just being taken care of, but their needs are not up here, their needs are down here because they have the shelter, they have the food, they have clothing. Okay, you're taken care of. Okay, is everybody going to live like that?
I think it comes down to personal choice. I think if you have the time to sit for a second and your needs are met, your rent is paid this month, you have food in the fridge, your kids are taken care of, they're going to school, you can sit around and go, what do I want to do today?
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way. We just saw that play itself out with COVID and unemployment, and then the stimulus package on top of the unemployment. And then it got to a point to where, COVID was ending. You can go back to work, and nobody wanted to go back to work.
Yeah, but this was also based on, again, resources. We slipped into a bad economy because our stockpiles on everything. We had to move into an emergency state in order to make sure that everybody's needs were met when everything shut down. That system was rolling in a pretty even fashion prior to the pandemic. When you halt everything, you had all the math and everything that you use to calculate how many potatoes you have to grow for the day, multiplied by the year, multiplied by 10 years. Once you throw a monkey wrench in all of that, you're going to have a dip. And now, 2-3 years later, we're slowly catching back up and getting those levels of supply and demand back to even. As people go out to work, they make more money, they want to spend more money, they need different things.
Well, there's the difference right there. People going to work, making more money so that they can live that life and spend more money. But what you're talking about is, the people being taken care of so that their needs are taken care of.
But the example you provided was thrown into is a negative situation that we had to reel back from or survive. What I'm saying is if we have artificial intelligence or some form of universal basic income, arguing this point that system is still in place, it's actually just running by itself for us. We can put it on autopilot.
But I wasn't talking about the system. I was talking about people, individuals. I was talking about their mindset. I was talking about here, we're going to give you more and more, take care of your basic needs. And they lost the drive. They lost their purpose. They showed that they no longer wanted to. Why should I go work and produce when I'm making more staying home? My needs are met. We've took away part of that.
I'm saying we're stuck in a system in which we have to work in order to meet our needs. If our needs are met, we don't have to spend that time working is what I guess the point that I'm arguing, the point that other people we're eventually are going to get to this point where we do not need to go till our own fields by ourselves, pushing a cart to create.
We already don't have to, but your point and what I'm trying to wrap my head around is you're saying that, okay, they no longer have to go to work and their needs are met. So not all those people are going to sit and contemplate on the world today and how they can make it a better place, or they're not going to, do
No, they're going to
portraits.
spend time doing the things that they want to do. I guarantee you, you can poll most of the country. 8 out of 10 people don't like what they do. They do it because they have to, because they have bills to pay, because they have a mortgage to pay. I kind of feel like
it's your example is actually reinforcing the point a little, which is that like people were having their basic needs met by unemployment or whatever from the government. And so what they didn't want to do was go back to their jobs that were like things that they don't actually like doing, and that might be soul sucking and necessary for their survival, but not actually like nourishing to their souls, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely good point. But then again, too, you have to show
the Great
me
resignation. You have the reset of all this because people stopped.
But you have to show me, okay, how many people are going to work that feel fulfilled by going to work and are not going to work just to cover not just their essential needs, but, because everybody's needs become different.
Yeah.
I got 9 kids. My needs are different. I'm a single man. My needs are different.
So I guess the question is, if you made the same amount of money you make every year, would you still choose to go to work?
Oh, hell no.
Thank you. my point is...
It doesn't mean I'm going to be productive and I'm going to change my viewpoint on anything.
After a certain amount of time...
So what kind of a civilization are we creating where people are not doing anything? You're just paying me money to stay home. There's no guarantee I'm going to come up with a new profound thought process, or I'm not going to sit down and I'm going to draw and put together a Rembrandt, or I'm not it's not going to happen. So now what kind of a society do we have that is non-productive? We have machines doing all the productivity. You're going to pay me whatever I need to get by so I can consume to keep the machines busy.
But maybe it's also the cost of goods and services go down. It's not a monetary thing. The problem is...
But you're missing my point. Where's the human factor in this? Now you have washed away human beings, and you're just giving them money to go away, go shut up, go live in your little dormitory that you need, and the machines are going to take care of everything else. We don't need you.
Maybe the answer to your question is that, like, I think there's 2 things that come to mind for me. One is which, like, and I might just be like too much of a techno optimist, but like if you have a world in which everything is like a net cost of 0, like where the things you're consuming are like exactly equal to the things you're producing, something like that, then the people who are just like lazy bums are not going to be a sink on society, right? They're just going to exist, and like their existence will be neutral, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is that I think the piece missing here, and that was like so painfully missing in COVID, was the sense of like community, right? And so like I think the whole reason why we care about literature, movies, why we care about art is like because it's like this thing of humans connecting with each other's and their humanity, right? And so like if you have a society that's more structured around like the local community, and like that person who would be like locked in his room playing video games all day or whatever is now going to go like spend a few hours like in his local garden or something. Like, I don't know, maybe then you'll have like less of this suicide and like social anxiety and stuff that keeps people, or sorry, not suicide,
isolated.
But depressive thoughts that keeps people like isolated and in their little bubbles and bums, you know, and more of the, that's the hope.
And for this to work, that has to be a part of the plan. There has to be something there that, okay, we're going to take this job away that you've been going to every day. You hated your job. You didn't really like the job. But when you got paid, you felt fulfilled and you were able to pay your bills, made you feel fulfilled. Now we're going to take all that away. We're going to give you money and you go figure out yourself, okay, what's going to fulfill you now? And there's a lot of people out there that don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't know themselves. They don't know, what's going to be fulfilling. They don't know. They don't know.
You got to try it.
But they don't even know what to try.
Yeah.
I think that going off of what you're saying, and I agree with you, the one part that is missing is leadership through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Sure.
We cannot have leadership like we have in today's world that's divided. and is throwing people one against the other. We have to have a leadership that would pull us all together, and we're all in it. We're all in it with the same purposes in mind, so that we're not constantly bickering. We're not fighting. Part of our world and depression and anxiety and all these different things isn't just because we're going to work and doing something we hate. We're going to work and doing something that we hate to pay the bills, to live in a society that is split.
Yeah.
And is constantly fighting. And when you look at social media today, and what pops up is disgusting. I mean, you see reels on Instagram with girls half naked doing splits, telling you to subscribe to their whatever because they're making $10,000 a day off of pictures or doing whatever, or they're showing men, bumping each other and turning around and knocking one another out on the sidewalk, or
it goes to our base reality, violence, sex, all of it. You know, it's like
and so that's when we're looking at shit like that, or then we're listening to Biden said this, Trump said this, Pelosi said this, and this is what somebody's doing, this is what somebody over here is doing, and then we're watching on Instagram and somebody on the right is agreeing with with what Trump is doing. A person on the left's going, oh yeah, Biden this, and then it's like, what the fuck, man? No wonder, that we are just, driving each other crazy. And then you take everything that we're talking about right here, and we look at the younger generations coming up. We're looking at the kids that are in grammar school. We're looking at the kids that are in middle school, look, high school. What's their future going to be? When you stop and think about where technology was 20 years ago, when that person just going in, that little kid's just going into kindergarten right now, by the time they're out of high school in 12 more years, 13 years, where's that technology going to be? Where's our world going to be? Those are the bigger questions, I think, and I don't really feel like, okay, we're going to give you enough money, you're going to be on your own. That's not going to help the problem. We need people to fix our issues, and we're not going to get anywhere until leadership. So it would scare me doing what you're talking about doing with the leadership that we have today. I think it would take us down a dark hole.
What's really tough about the UBI conversation, I think, is that you're trying to explain something that is very real and very binary. You go to work, you make money, you save your money, you pay your bills, with something so philosophical as let's just give you free money and all the things you can do. And like the way I look at it is, instead of me going to the library like you used to have to do to open up a bunch of encyclopedias to learn about something, I pull out my phone and I have all the world's knowledge on my phone.
Absolutely.
That's exactly how I see UBI. If we can get to the ability to have your phone, you're going to use this piece of technology to gain that information that you need, that you used to have to walk to the library to. And I know it's tough when you're like, just give everybody money and look what just happened. But I think, because you're arguing like two very opposite sides of the spectrum. Like, I can't take my philosophy and have it feed me,
Yeah, totally.
But
I also think like the idea, like a lot of what I'm talking about anyway, is like very much a utopia that we're not anywhere near right now. Like today's world, not a utopia.
I've always tried to achieve this utopia, and there's always like the other side of it. There's always, it's never perfect. None of this is perfect.
Well, I think in order for me to really buy into this, like I said, leadership would have to be changed, completely revamped, turned around. I would have to have faith and trust again in my leadership, and that's the very first thing. The other thing is, when you're going to pay somebody, you're going to say, okay, stay home. There has to be some kind of a plan. It cannot just be everybody deserves it, everybody's being taken care of. Now, everybody does deserve it. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see anybody doing without. But to do a blanket cover over the top of everybody, you better have a fucking plan put together of how this is supposed to work, and not do. And I think when I was talking about the incentives, the unemployment, and then special programs, and giving you. I think it was because there was no plan attached to it. It was just throwing money out there. Here's some more money. Here's
in
some
a
more
state
money.
of already chaos, right? Like already people were just at home being like, "What am I doing?"
I even
And then
remember
you just-
looking at that check and being like, "This doesn't feel good. This is not right.
Yeah.
This doesn't
No.
seem right." You know, like
Yeah, but I think a lot of what you're talking about is like this argument that like people need a purpose. And like right now work is our purpose, but I think the argument is that like something other than work that we hate could be our purpose. And like
Absolutely.
and so it's just a matter of like giving the purpose, which is
Yeah.
I think totally valid.
And this is what I was saying with the Greeks. Their purpose was to gain more land and more resources. Once they did that enough, they sat around long enough to start thinking. Once we start thinking, innovation is bred.
Well, I think that what you're saying is true. I think that if there was a program put in place, and everybody can get taken care of, and it's no different than getting a grant. Should be able to do the same process, saying, you know what, I've been at what I'm doing for 20 years. I've hated it for 20 years. It's not fulfilling me. I would like to take the time so I can fill in the blank. You submit it. Yes, we like your idea. We're going to pay you to stay home. Good luck. And then, but you have to have a purpose. You have to have something. You just cannot just tell somebody, just go kick it. I mean, I'm 70 years old. I've been working my whole fucking life. Give me some money. I'll stay home.
I'm over it.
I'm over it. But I will fucking stay
more
home.
to say.
I just want to do. I want to do a podcast.
A podcaster. You would grow. You would do a bunch of other things. You'd take care of your family.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I would have to put together, whatever I would need to do to get this grant to stay home because I want to grow my podcast.
Yeah.
I want to compete in outrigger canoe. I want to do these things. This is what I want to accomplish with my life from this point on.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
Jordan
I can see that as like a segue.
Jordan
maybe,
Peterson
like, from,
says, everybody wants to sip Mai Tais on the beach, but how long? 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year, 5 years?
Yeah.
How long are you going to sip Mai Tais on the beach? And that's kind of it's true. It's like if you had everything taken care of, the people born with the silver spoon, do something with it. What are you going to do? Or are you going to do something with it? I think it comes down to the individual.
Well, also too, I can see the other side of that. There are some people that I think that could actually sit for 5 years and drink a Mai Tai on the beach every fucking day.
So hard to imagine.
Yeah, me. It would drive me crazy. For a week, okay. 2 weeks, I'm getting a little antsy.
Yeah.
That's me. So I'm not saying that I'm all that. I'm just saying that for me, if we find people that have that same outlook towards life, that I got to create something.
Yeah.
I got to do something. I got to learn to fly a helicopter.
Yeah.
I got to, I've been wanting to, volunteer and be a volunteer fireman, or I want to go be a reserve police officer, or I want to, whatever it is. If you've got something, then no problem. Here's your grant. But if you're just saying, dude, I want to go sit on the beach for 5 fucking years and drink Mai Tais, it's like, no, I don't think so.
That's in our nature, though. That's the thing. That's not in our nature. And I would argue that most of the people on the lower socioeconomic ladder have wants and needs and aspirations, and they're smart in math and physics and all these other things. They're trapped under the boot of bills and our monetary system. And I'm arguing on that side because I see both sides. I understand the practical nature of it versus the theory. If they had the time and the opportunity to extrapolate and explore on those needs, we would have a lot more scientists. We'd have a lot more philosophers. We'd have a lot more mathematicians, engineers, all these other people doing these vocations.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. But you can't just write a blank check and say everybody is going to be this way. This is the
problem.
There has to be a plan attached to it so that those that are trapped and have a lot more to offer than flipping burgers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Here's your grant.
Yeah.
But you got somebody else, and literally all they want to do is sit home, get high, drink, not do a damn thing. No, I'm sorry. You got to do something in society.
Yeah. It goes back to community, though. Like you're saying, a lot of those people are filling that void because they're missing something.
Yeah.
And you're missing something because you have problems that you're not tackling.
Yeah.
I also think it's a very like American perspective that you have too. Like that you're bringing like a certain framework, which is that you got to like, contribute something to like have a right to these things, and like
Yeah.
not every culture would feel that way either.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Well, I'm not saying you have to contribute. I'm just saying you have to do something. What you do may not be you may not be contributing to me. Whatever it is that you're doing may not be enhancing my life or anybody else's life, but
have a purpose.
you have a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm saying is everybody needs a purpose in life to feel whole, to feel good about themselves.
Totally. Yeah.
You know?
Let me interject here for a second and question, because again,
Sure.
I'm in the trades, you're in the trades, this sort of perspective as well. The question would be like, if you were able to just say, hey, I want to be a podcaster and I think that'd be great for everyone. Here, where's my check?
Yep.
If everyone were to be able to do that, then you would see what we're seeing now, and the trades are suffering. There's no more plumbers. There's no more electricians. There's none of it, right? Because nobody necessarily straps their boots on and goes, oh, I'm so excited to be an electrician today, unless they're very enveloped in the societal thing of, I'm going to work to earn my keep, right? Like that's a social construct, right? Like, so the only reason somebody would be super stoked to go work is because they think they should, right? So what about that, right? Like if you were able to just say, hey, I want to paint for a living, right? Like, yeah, that's great. But don't you think everybody would want stuff like that? And then the things that we need as a society, we need electricians, we need plumbers, because robots can't do that stuff.
But they might. That's the point. They will be able to eventually. Is the point,
eventually,
right?
but I mean,
and also maybe some people just like being
comes
electricians.
first, though? What comes
right?
first? Is it robots are able to do that, and then we can get checks, or is it we get checks and then people?
It's not the money. We are so stuck
Supply
on
and
this
demand.
monetary trade and barter system. It's resources. It's not the money. We can't eat money, so it's like we're stuck on money because money allots you resources.
But we're speaking as Americans in America, which is a capitalistic society, right? Which is the only point of this conversation. Is like, if you weren't struggling from bills, you wouldn't do anything if you didn't need to, right? So money is a very important factor in this conversation.
But that's the whole concept of the argument, if you will, or the back and forth, or the two different viewpoints. Is we're saying if you didn't need money, if you had your basic resources needs met,
which are
your Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yeah.
your shelter, your food, and your security.
okay.
You, in theory, would spend more time extrapolating on other parts of your personality and your likes that you would take the time. So I, as an example, would take care of my body by working out. I would spend time with my family. I'd spend time with my friends. I'd surf because I enjoy it as a hobby. And I'd probably learn to program just because I find that interesting right now. Or I'd learn to work on cars, or I'd learn to
But let me ask you,
do whatever else.
Who's going to make the food? Who's going to make the houses? Who's going to make the shelter? Who's
People
going
love to-
who's going to wire it? Who's going to do the plumbing? Who's going
think
to
if
do all
I-
these things? That's my question.
I think to answer, or like, I think this is a very good question in the sense that like no one knows the right answer, right?
Yeah.
But if
Right.
I had to guess, or like what my vision of it would be something like, if tomorrow universal basic income was like a principle that was passed, it still probably wouldn't be enough for people to absolutely live off of in the standards of living they have now, right? A lot of the proposals you look at, it's like just enough for people to be able to feed themselves, for example. So they would probably still have to be electricians or whatever to do more than just feed themselves. But eventually, I think the point is that you like inject some money into the system, some resources into the system, such that over time and over these like cycles and generations, you could allow people to not worry about feeding themselves, so that maybe they can go to college, so that we have more people working on the AI to replace electricians.
If you can make the same amount of money you make a year, let's say you make $100,000 a year, but you only had to work 2 days a week or 5 days a week, what would you pick?
Obviously, less work.
You'd work 2 days because the rest of the time? What are you doing?
Not working.
But you're not working
at a job that
but you're not sitting
obviously,
staring at the wall.
yeah.
What are you doing?
Right. I mean, whatever I want. But that's obviously not very productive.
That's the concept of this argument. And again, I'm not saying I'm bought into this. We just got on the.
But the other thing too, Dylan, and what I was going to rebut with your comment is there are already people that are on unemployment, which is plenty enough to eat, and they're not working. Right? They can eat. They can maybe pay some of their bills or whatever. They're obviously living well below, anything, right? But
Yeah.
that already happens, and those people are right now, they are not contributing to society in the sense that like they're not electricians. They're not. So yeah, they are paying their like.
Are you talking about
basic-
the idea of like welfare queens or something? 'Cause
No.
I feel like that's,
I'm
like,
just talking about you're saying that if there was UBI and it were just a little bit of money enough to cover food and stuff like that,
Yeah.
you can already do that with unemployment, and you cannot work. Like also, right? You can also not work, and we see that that happens all the time. So it's like
Does it happen all the time?
I just
like
apply
in
for
the sense that
unemployment,
like
it's not enough.
not you
for what I make.
specifically. Sure, no, it's not. It's not enough for. But you could live off of.
Nope.
You could live off of an.
Well,
Nope.
you
if you
let me inject here. You
I'll tell you why.
you could not survive your style of living on unemployment.
Well, yeah, I
plus,
guess you're right.
That's what I was trying to say.
yeah, plus, maybe you're going to get a little bit from another program of Social Security. Going to kick in because you're unemployable.
At my age?
Yeah, they've got programs. Okay, Social Security.
They
Social
pull it out early. Kind of
Yeah,
thing?
well, no, not even that. But Social Security. That's there are programs for mothers with children that there are an abundance of programs that are out there that are helping people survive, which I'm all for when used correctly and not abused.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. Unemployment for you today with your living style, is not going to cover enough.
Not enough.
It doesn't bridge it for you, but it bridges for a lot of other people.
yeah.
And and that was the whole point of the unemployment to begin with. It wasn't to make sure that you had enough to get by and never go to work again. There's a limit to it.
Yeah.
But I think what my whole point in this is, and we're probably really just arguing something to argue because because none of this is going to happen in any time in the near future.
Yeah.
And in agreement in today's world, what Brian is saying is absolutely true. We don't have plumbers, we don't have electricians, we don't have enough.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It has nothing to do with people not wanting to go to work. It's people not knowing, not understanding, and how our society has changed, where you have kids coming out of high school that literally do not want to go into the trades. I've talked to a number of them that don't want to go into the trades. They're coming through school, and this gets me on a whole other tangent of academia and counselors and teachers and pushing children to further education that have not shown interest in further education.
Yeah.
Believe me, all about further education.
Yeah.
If you have a need, a necessity, you have a plan, you know where you're going to go, or you have shown to be, academically strong. But they seem to push everybody in that direction. And parents also take a certain amount of pride with, my child got accepted here and got accepted there, and they're going over here. And, it puts a lot of pressure on the child. And next thing you know, they're off going to school, but they're doing shitty and blah, blah, blah. Not everybody is geared to go to school and get a further education. And I'm not saying that because I'm anti. You know me, I believe in higher education. It's important if you're the right person.
Yeah.
Just like if you're the right person, being an electrician, being a crane operator, being a carpenter, being whatever, is a highly paid skill that men are out there raising families, buying homes, having nice cars and trucks by working in the trades. But it's going downhill because there's nobody there. There's nobody coming up that is looking at that as a viable way of income. So I agree with him, but
I think it's also too just the options people have when you're like a little kid. Well, one, I totally agree with the whole like extended education thing. I literally felt like if I didn't go to college, I'd be homeless growing up. You know, it'd be a total failure. And I don't think that's right. You know, I don't think that's right for a society. And I don't think that's just me that felt that way either. Right. I think a lot of my generation felt that way, which is why we have, you know, student debt out the walls and whatever. But I think we have so many like shiny toys as options for jobs, social media, and, you know, all whatever, you know, you could be an expert, and I've done marketing for forever. What the hell is marketing? You know, it's like, it's not a tangible thing. But all I saw when I was that age was working for the cool brands and, you know, seeing the ads and wanting to be a part of that, you know. So I don't know if it's just the lack of information, people not knowing what they can actually do with the skills of being an electrician or being a plumber, or tugging on that part of your brain, maybe being an engineer. Like there are levels to it, right? Like, you know, you have a basic understanding of electrical work, but that also branches into your interest in cars and taking engines apart and all this other stuff. Like that's just your personality. It shapes your personality, you know. I'm fascinated by physics and science, and I don't understand half of it, but in my leisure time, I have the technology and the ability to listen to these topics and like think about them, you know. And I just think that if people had more opportunity and more availability to make those choices and pursue paths, and they're not bogged down by something they don't want to do, I think for humans overall, that's a net positive.
Well, I think anytime, again, that's painting a wide brush over everybody, that everybody has that same thought process you do of wanting to expand their knowledge, wanting to learn more, wanting to have a passion about, but it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true in the real world. Not everybody is that way. Not everybody thinks that way. Not everybody had the upbringing or the background or the, you know, or even the ability to think that way.
I just think we have the same basic needs and wants as a species.
We do.
You know, you want to progress, you want to take care, you know, you want to have purpose like we're talking about. You want to be part of a community, be part of a tribe. Like that's kind of what I'm touching on.
Yeah,
I think.
No, absolutely. I agree with that part, but and I'm not saying that I disagree with taking care of people, and especially if they're losing work because of automation or, you know, changes in the way. I mean, we're seeing a big shift right now. It's, you know, Amazon, for example.
Yeah,
you know, has basically closed down malls, basically closed down a lot of retail type stores, because, you know, it's so much easier for all of us to get on our phone, order something sight unseen, pay for it on an Amazon card, and have it delivered to my doorstep tomorrow morning. And mom and pop are slowly being phased out. We're watching this whole thing right in front of our very eyes, and you know, in the moment today, that's what's happening. And so when you see that, I'm not saying that those people don't need help. I'm not saying that you just let them linger out there. They do need all the basics. What I'm saying is to do a blanket and tell everybody, because what I'm hearing is basically, oh yeah, quit your fucking job. You don't need to go to work anymore. If you got a mundane job you don't like, quit your job. We're going to give you money. And I don't think that that's healthy. I don't think that that's healthy for the human psyche. We started our whole conversation out earlier talking about human beings versus AI, and, you know, what's the difference? One of the differences is in human beings is that we do have feelings. We do want to feel good about ourselves. We do want to feel like we're something. We want to feel like we are, you know, important to not just, I don't want to just feel like I'm important to you. I want to feel like I'm important to society. I want to feel like what I do in society, whether it's a podcast, whether, you know, it's my past work as a police officer, or no matter what, I want to feel like I am giving something to society. I want to feel like, you know, I see a homeless person. I don't give every homeless person, you know, money, because I do know that over 90% of them are on the streets because of drugs and alcohol and, you know, and issues that, you know, maybe they can or cannot, help, but this is where they're at. So, but there are some people that are out there that are just,
Yeah.
maybe mental issues or, whatever that, so I'll help them. So I want to feel like I'm giving to society. I want to feel like I'm a part of this group, this, like you said, this cult, this tribe, this, whatever that we are. But I don't think that everybody thinks that way.
Yeah.
And we can't, paint a wide brush and say everybody's thinking that way. Everybody wants to be philosophical. Everybody wants to think about engineering. It doesn't work that way.
I just argue that the progression of the species, and you look around, we're not in a horse and buggy anymore. We have cars. With this advancement, as this rolls on, I don't think our traditional jobs and our working in an extended period of time for a piece of monetary refund that I could use to buy resources is not going to be the same in 100 years from now. I don't think it is. And I know it comes off as a pipe dream or as a utopian thought, but I think when we get to that point, and again, we take the wide swath of the population, the people that are choosing to be a piece of shit and not doing anything versus the people that are stuck not being able to do anything because of their circumstances significantly outweighs. I'd much rather have 1 million people choose to be dirtbags and do nothing versus the 5 to 10, 30 million people that are in poverty around the world, as an example, because of their circumstances. So I think, like I watched a video today. What's really popular on social media now, at least in my algorithm, I think is cool, is people. It's stupid, but at least I'm seeing something positive. To your point about all the negativity, people will build up pages. They'll have their viewers give them money, and then they go and they give money to someone that needs it. There was a family in a mall that was selling garbage bags for enough money for Christmas. Today's Christmas, everybody. This video is this guy taking this family to a toy store and giving them enough money for their toys and then giving them enough money for a year's worth of wage. And they are on their knees praying, they're crying. That's my point. My point is, like, if this, what happens after?
Right.
If you take that away, what does that family, how far does that family go?
Yeah, but that's up to society also.
Yeah.
Okay, that's up to us individually to make those differences. I was walking out. There's a homeless lady that I see walking around Seal Beach.
Yeah.
And I recognize her and I see her. And it's been about 7 or 8 months ago. She was standing right behind me in the line and buying a couple items. And she was counting pennies. Mm-hmm. And so I told the cashier quietly, not so that she would hear, this is for her. Give her the change.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I walk away, and I'm getting in my car and she's walking out and she stops and she comes over to me, very articulate, very sweet. Just want you to know how thankful I am.
Yeah.
That you did. And it broke my heart. I'm walking out today, just, when I went to the grocery store, I'm walking out today and I see her in the grocery store, but sitting out on the Starbucks, just sitting there at a table doing some paper, not eating anything, not doing anything, just probably just out, mind her own business.
Yeah.
And I walked by and I recognized her. So I stop, I come over, I reach in my pocket. Only thing I had was a 50 and a $1 bill. Guess which one she got for Christmas?
She got $51.
She got 50. And the look in her eye, where I handed it to her, both hands grabbed mine and just looked at me straight in the eye and was so thankful and said, bless you very much.
Yeah.
And I tell you that story not to say, oh, look what I did.
Yeah.
I'm just giving that story as an example of what we as individuals need to do.
Yeah.
And that's not for everybody. That's not every homeless person I see. Matter of fact, very few do I give money to.
Well, we just had Daniel on the program. Mm-hmm. In Daniel's worst state, would you trust him with money? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
But if Daniel was down on his luck, as beautiful of a human being as he is today, you'd help him out.
Absolutely.
This is the nature of our problems as a species.
So that's what I'm saying. As far as society needs to change.
We're sick.
We are sick.
We are sick.
We have too many prejudices. I mean, we have prejudices against race. We have prejudices against, sexual orientation. We have we have prejudices against what do you eat versus what do you eat or what do I eat.
Yeah.
I love meat. I'm a carnivore. I'll any kind of meat. Put it on my plate. I'm a happy guy. You're a vegetarian. You look at
So
my
lame.
you look at what I'm eating as that's gross. We have prejudices.
Yeah.
We have to I would love to see the day that we could walk through life and we talk about it all the time as humans, as people in society, of letting people just be people, letting people be themselves.
Yeah.
But we are so damn critical of one another.
Yeah.
We're critical of people we don't know. We're critical of family. We're critical of people at work. We're critical about every fucking thing we can be critical about.
And about ourselves.
And about ourselves. And we're cynical. And now I don't know, is that part of the human species?
Yeah. Is that the brain? What's going on in the brain?
Yeah, I think prejudices are here to stay, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's just the degree of them that will change and maybe like what kind. But I think it's really hard. Like in-group biases, like liking your own better and having a prejudice against people who are like the outside is like it's just so deep. Like it's
tribal.
It's so deep. It's really like subconscious and very, very hard to change. So yeah, I think you have to be super, super intentional about trying to change it or making it so that just like fewer people are considered the other, right? So
There was when this podcast first started a year or so ago, whenever we got it, up off the ground. One of the things that I really wanted to focus on was happiness. I wanted to promote happiness. I wanted to promote joy. I wanted people to start going through life and looking at life differently. That there is a lot going on in this world for us to be thankful about. Social media won't have us thinking that everything is, that there is a lot. There's a lot more happiness and joy out there than there is sadness.
Yeah.
If we look for it, but we're bombarded with the sadness. We're bombarded with the altercations.
Yeah.
It's a horrible environment that has been created for us, and we're when you have news media on two sides, instead of giving us the news, instead of saying this is reality, this is really where we're at, this is, hate to tell you guys this, but this just happened today, or you know what, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be great, and everybody's going to be happy for the next 3 weeks. There's no storms in the horizon. We don't get that.
But what happened right there is humans realized that if you take a more partisan approach, that's going to have more viewers on that partisan party line.
There you go. Yeah.
Engage, which is going to drive up ad revenue, which is going to pay you more.
Yeah.
And this is my point again, not to dive back into the UBI argument, but it's in our nature. We work against our own better nature.
Yeah.
Right. And if we could start to change that, I think we both come to the conclusion that people aren't going to change drastically in our nature over time. So that's why I think people have such a struggle with that topic. Yeah. And that was what I said in the very beginning was I'm not endorsing either way. I think it's an interesting conversation, but people struggle so much to conceptualize.
Well, I think it goes back to exactly what Dillan just said, which kind of summed it all up, is that, we all have our prejudices, and the prejudices are not going to go away.
Yeah.
I have a prejudice. My prejudice is I don't believe that all mankind wants to go to work, wants to be productive, and I think that there's a big portion of it that would be very happy sitting and collecting, so, it's I think a problem that I don't think has a solution for it anywhere in the near future. And that's why I go back to the little kids that are just starting out in kindergarten this coming year, and where are they going to be in 12, 13 years, or, where are they going to be after college?
Yeah.
What's our world going to look like? And I hate to say this, but my generation fucked it all up. It's,
but how much worse was your generation than the generation before that? I think on these more grand schemes, timelines is your generation was no worse than Genghis Khan you know, who like did a lot of bad stuff, you know, and like you go farther back than that.
Yeah.
You know, I
don't know. You just look at, you know,
I think we're getting better slowly.
I hope.
Yeah, me too.
I hope.
Yeah.
But one thing for sure, I know that we got a long ways to go. And I think that, AI isn't going to be the answer to put us on track.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that it's going to be human consciousness that's going to be the key. I think it's going to be whether we can explain it or not explain it, but our soul as a human being, and how we project ourselves day to day. And it starts with me, starts with you, everybody up and down the neighborhood. How we project who we are. You know, do we walk by that lady that's sitting there with a shopping cart and has nowhere to go and it's fucking Christmas and go, wow, sucks to be you, and walk away? Or do we go back and say, hey, let me get you a dinner tonight?
Yeah.
You know,
That's the choice.
those are the choices that we have. Or it has to do with, the lady at the register who's working all day Christmas, and, it's a long line. I'm going to be irritated at her because I had to stand in a long line. No, she's the one that's standing there all day on her feet on a Christmas day. I'm just going shopping. I'm coming home.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we project ourselves to these people? How do you project yourself to the stranger walking down the street coming at you?
Yeah.
I had a great kind of banter back and forth with a guy on the street yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, and it was funny because he just looks at me. I look at him and say, "Hey, how are you today?" He goes, "I'm doing pretty good." And I said, "You ready for Christmas?" And he goes, "Christmas?" Like didn't know what it was, and I got it. It was like, yeah, man, I wish I had that thought process. And he started laughing, and we just kind of went back and forth as we crossed the street together. And then he says, "Yeah, no, I'm all done. I'm all set with Christmas, man." And then I went my way, and he's, have a great holiday, and him the same. And it was like somebody I'll probably never see again in my life.
Sure.
And yet I had this great little experience, and I think we miss out on that because we don't make fucking eye contact with people anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think it's also like...
Well, may not just be because they're in their phone. People are afraid to make eye contact.
Yeah,
They don't do it. They're afraid that you're going to say something. You're going to want something. There's going to be a confrontation, whatever that it is. People don't make eye contact anymore. I try to. I try to make contact with everybody.
Yeah.
It's just...
I think everything is changing, though. The dynamics of a relationship, what used to be the general rule of thumb is changing.
Yeah.
Things feel more transactional in that regard now, too, because of our instant gratification.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what? This has been a great time.
Yeah.
It's almost time for Christmas dinner.
Oh,
and,
wow. Already?
Already, yeah. Time kind of flies by. But this is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to putting this one up on the air for us.
Dylan, are aliens real? Are aliens real, Dylan? Dylan, are aliens real?
I'm really neutral on that one.
Do we have time?
I'm not going to say yes.
Do we have time for that question?
I told you it was going to be wisdom, knowledge, and a box of rocks. So I hope I aim to please on that one.
What am I, Steve?
I don't know, but when you were talking about...
What does that make me?
When you were talking about the electricians and that being popular, I thought you were going to say keeping up with the electricians. Like it was, more people would want to be electricians if it was as popular.
Dude, new YouTube channel. Let's go.
Keeping up with the electricians.
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
If Duck Dynasty could do it, why not you?
Yeah.
Oh my God. With that
Did
one,
they ever?
With that one, we're signing off. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.